she plays. Look,
damn, girl.
she's obviously very sweet. She doesn't at all have any negative intent at all. She doesn't hit hard, and she plays very clean basketball. And watch what she does to the eyes.
Imagine standing in the control room of one of the biggest independent media networks in the world, watching a video monitor as audio waveforms light up the screen in front of a live studio audience. The sports landscape was already sitting on a massive powder keg after months of intense rivalries and endless online debate. But nobody could have predicted that a single raw, unedited audio file recorded behind locked doors would threaten to tear down the entire public image of women's professional basketball. When that secret tape made its way onto the internet, passing through quiet message boards and private group chats before exploding across social media feeds, it didn't just cause a mild stir among BeatU writers. It triggered an absolute earthquake across the entire sports media industry. And when business commentator and valuetainment host Patrick Bet-David finally got his hands on the raw audio file, his unscripted, unfiltered reaction was so intense and furious that it completely destroyed the polite, polished commentary that music corporate networks had been feeding sports fans for months. He didn't offer canned public relations excuses. He didn't try to protect anyone's personal reputation, and he certainly didn't care about offending league executives sitting in corporate suites. Music. He saw a system that was gaslighting millions of hardworking paying fans. And he decided to expose every single layer of it live on air. To truly grasp why Patrick Bet-David was pushed so far over the edge, you have to rewind and look at the intense high-stakes environment that was building up behind the scenes. Long before that hidden microphone ever caught a single word, music, the entire sport had been operating in an unprecedented pressure cooker throughout the entire season. Fueled by a historic surge in mainstream attention, sold-out arenas across the country, and record-breaking television ratings, millions of new fans were tuning in every single night. Brought into the fold by generational rookie talent, ferocious on-court rivalries, and a cultural energy the league had never experienced in its entire history. But with that massive influx of public attention came an incredible amount of scrutiny music, where every single physical contact, every sharp word spoken on the court, and every defensive scheme was amplified across millions of phone screens worldwide. For the first time ever, fans weren't just watching the final score on the ticker, music. They were dissecting body language, officiating double standards, and subtle personal rivalries that seemed to simmer just below the surface during every single game. Within this intense cauldron, every team was desperately looking for an edge. Not just in terms of basic basketball fundamentals, but in how they physically dictated the pace of the game against high-profile opponents who were drawing all the corporate spotlight. The atmosphere was ripe for conflict. But while legacy networks kept broadcasting a squeaky clean story about sisterhood and unified growth, the reality inside team hallways was becoming increasingly aggressive, competitive, and downright ruthless. Right at the very center of this brewing storm was Dijonai Carrington, a player whose meteoric rise and unapologetic demeanor turned her into one of the most talked-about figures in modern sports. Carrington was a dominant physical force on the court, earning widespread praise for her elite defensive tenacity and quick transition play, eventually taking home the Most Improved Player award after a stellar campaign. But off the court, her active online presence and unfiltered post-game comments frequently turned her into a lightning rod for intense, polarizing debate across the internet. She was never one to back down from a confrontation, regularly addressing critics on social media platforms and openly questioning how mainstream journalists were framing the stories surrounding the league's newest superstars. To her loyal supporters, she was a fierce competitor, protecting her team's culture and speaking her mind in a media landscape that constantly favored corporate darlings. To her harshest critics, her physical encounters on the floor, music, especially during high-stakes matchups against marquee rookies who drove league ratings, appeared calculated, dangerous, and excessively aggressive. Every time she stepped onto the floor, the tension in the building was palpable, creating an environment where a single spark could ignite a national controversy. What the public didn't know was that behind those intense games and defensive assignments, conversations were taking place inside team quarters that went far beyond standard competitive drive. Navigating that level of hostility and outside media noise required a head coach who could command the locker room with an iron fist. And Stephanie White was widely viewed as one of the sharpest, most relentless tactical minds in the entire game. As the leader of a tough, defensively driven Connecticut squad, White had spent years perfecting a system built on grit, physical intimidation, and relentless ball pressure against opposing guards. She knew that to slow down hyper-efficient offensive teams and high-volume star shooters, her players had to operate right on the extreme edge of what official referees would allow on any given night. It was a tactical philosophy music that required total buy-in from her roster, pushing them to set bone-jarring screens, play aggressive hand-checking defense, and make every single drive into the paint as painful as possible for opposing scorers. However, coaching in the modern social media era means managing far more than basic X's and O's. It requires managing individual human egos, public relations optics, and player morale when the outside world is constantly judging every move. Insiders had whispered for months that the demands inside White's locker room were far more severe and demanding than the calm, analytical persona she displayed during televised baseline interviews. Music, the internal pressure to maintain their identity as the league's premier defensive bullies created a high-stress environment where lines between tough, basketball, and intentional, physical disruption began to blur completely. Then came the exact moment that sent shockwaves through the entire sports ecosystem. The quiet, unexpected drop of a leaked audio file that contained confidential discussions never meant for public consumption. Music. The recording, which was secretly captured on a mobile device near the back entrance of a locker room facility following an intensely physical game, caught raw, unedited audio between key team figures. In the clear, unambiguous recording, the voice attributed to head coach Stephanie White can be heard delivering harsh, explicit tactical directives regarding how to physically handle specific high-profile opponents who were capturing the majority of media coverage. Rather than discussing standard defensive rotations, music hedge coverage, or double-team schemes, the conversation centered around setting an intimidating physical tone, exploiting known blind spots in officiating coverage, and forcing opposing star players into frustrating, dangerous physical confrontations. Even more startling was the voice identified as Dijonai Carrington, who candidly discussed how to handle the inevitable media backlash that would follow these physical tactics on court. On the tape, she appeared to mock the mainstream media's predictable reactions, openly talking about leveraging social media narratives to play the victim and flip public perception whenever critics called out dirty plays. Music. It wasn't just basic athletic trash talk or high-voltage locker room banter. It sounded like a calculated strategy designed to manipulate both the physical outcome of games and the post-game media coverage. When that leaked audio file was delivered directly to Patrick Bet-David and played inside the Valuetainment control room, music, the reaction inside the studio was immediate, visceral, and completely unhinged. Bet-David, a self-made entrepreneur who prides himself on cutting through corporate deception and calling out systemic hypocrisy across business and culture, sat at his microphone as the audio played out loud for his entire production team and millions of viewers. As the words echoed through the studio, PBD's face turned red with visible anger, and he slammed his hands down onto the desk in pure, unfiltered frustration. He didn't just critique the basketball tactics or question the coaching strategy. He went directly after the total lack of integrity, character, and basic respect for the paying public. Music PBD pointed out how millions of everyday parents and young aspiring athletes were tuning in to watch what they believed was clean, elite athletic competition, only to discover that behind the scenes, coaches and players were plotting underhanded ways to physically disrupt rivals while laughing at the fans who bought tickets. He called the entire setup a complete fraud, slamming the recorded figures for pretending to be innocent victims of harsh media coverage while secretly orchestrating the very controversies they complained about on social media. His explosive rant wasn't just about one coach or one player. It was a sweeping indictment of a corporate sports culture that values narrative manipulation over genuine sportsmanship. What made Patrick Music Bet-David even more furious was the absolute deafening radio silence coming from major mainstream sports networks in the hours and days immediately following the audio leak. While independent sports creators, digital sleuths, and alternative media podcasts were analyzing every single second of the leaked tape, legacy outlets like ESPN and major network sports desks Music acted as if the recording didn't even exist. PBD exposed this glaring double standard live on his show, pointing out how quickly those exact same legacy networks would have suspended players, Music fired coaches, or demanded lifetime bans if a similar recording had leaked from a men's professional team or an unpopular sports program. Music. He argued that legacy sports media was intentionally burying the story to protect their massive, multi-million-dollar broadcasting investments and shield the league from any reputational damage that might hurt television, ad revenue, and corporate sponsorships. According to PBD, this artificial protection was actually hurting the sport far more than helping it, because modern fans are far too smart to fall for corporate cover-ups and media blackout strategies. By refusing to cover the leaked audio with honest journalistic rigor, mainstream networks only proved B. David's point that the whole system was rigged to push a sanitized artificial story while hiding the real dirty truth happening behind closed doors. Behind the scenes in the league's executive suites and team corporate offices, the leak triggered an absolute full-blown public relations emergency where crisis managers worked around the clock to contain the massive fallout. Corporate sponsors who had invested millions of dollars into player endorsements, music team sponsorships, and national ad campaigns suddenly found themselves tied to a massive public integrity scandal that threatened their brand reputations. Music emergency meetings were called between team executives, crisis management experts, and high-powered legal teams to craft official public statements that could diffuse the anger without legally confirming the authenticity of the recording. Standard PR defense tactics were immediately deployed across media channels. Official public statements questioned the illegal origin of the audio file, hinted at potential modern artificial intelligence manipulation, and insisted that short audio snippets were taken entirely out of context to harm the organization's standing. But on social media platforms, the music court of public opinion was not buying the canned corporate responses for a single second. Millions of fans began rewatching archived game footage with razor-sharp focus, pointing out specific plays where Carrington's physical actions matched the exact aggressive directives discussed in the leaked audio tape. The comment sections under official league posts were completely taken over by furious viewers demanding immediate suspensions, independent investigations, and complete transparency from the front office. The internal fallout inside team locker rooms and league facilities was just as severe as trust among players across the league completely evaporated overnight in the wake of the exposure. When a secret recording leaks from within a private team environment, it creates a paranoid atmosphere where nobody knows who to trust, who is loyal, or who might be secretly recording private conversations for personal music leverage. Players on opposing teams felt deeply betrayed, realizing that the physical bumps, hard fouls, and verbal jabs they experienced during games were music, part of a premeditated tactical hit job, rather than natural basketball competition. Several veteran players discreetly voiced their disgust with the situation through trusted media contacts, expressing intense frustration that the actions of a few individuals were tarnishing the global reputation of a league that had worked decades for mainstream respect. Meanwhile, music allies of Carrington and White tried to circle the wagons tightly, music accusing critics and independent hosts of engaging in a targeted smear campaign designed to tear down successful women in professional sports. The entire league found itself bitterly divided into two warring camps: those who demanded strict accountability, honest officiating, and true sportsmanship, and those who tried to justify the audio as basic competitive banter that got blown out of proportion music by sensationalist media. Personalities like Patrick Bet-David, this exploding controversy music expanded far beyond the boundaries of a single sport or a single locker room debate, serving as a massive warning sign about the dark side of modern sports entertainment and corporate business culture. In an era where every single athlete operates as an independent brand and every professional league functions like a high-stakes corporate enterprise, the line between genuine athletic competition and staged, calculated narrative drama has become dangerously blurred. Patrick Bet-David's furious studio meltdown tapped into a deep, growing frustration among real sports fans who feel that natural, honest competition is rapidly being replaced by corporate optics, forced media narratives, and hidden agendas. When money, social media engagement metrics, and television ad rates become the sole focus of sports executives, the fundamental core of athletic competition, music, fair play, mutual respect, and raw skill gets completely thrown out the window. The secret recording proved that modern sports fans are completely exhausted by being treated like passive consumers who will blindly accept whatever sanitized storyline network producers decide to feed them during primetime broadcasts. Viewers want absolute truth, even if that truth is messy, uncomfortable, and exposes the dark, cynical underbelly of the sports industry. As the ongoing storm surrounding Stephanie White, Dijonai Carrington, and Patrick Bet-David continues to rage across alternative media platforms, the long-term consequences of this scandal will undoubtedly ripple through professional sports for years to come. Head coaches across every major sport are now operating with extreme caution behind closed doors, knowing that private locker room instructions and cynical game plans, music, can be exposed to millions of people worldwide with a single click of an upload button. Music. Modern athletes are learning the hard lesson that social media posturing, post-game spin, and public victimhood can instantly backfire when authentic behind-the-scenes actions are exposed to the cold light of day. And independent commentators like PBD have proven once again that legacy corporate media no longer holds a monopoly on how sports stories are covered, analyzed, or judged by the viewing public. The secret recording opened a door that can never be closed again, leaving fans to question every physical foul, every referee whistle, every post-game press conference, and every corporate PR statement they see on their television screens. As the next season approaches and teams gear up for another intense championship run, one massive question hangs over the entire sports world like a dark cloud. Was this exposed audio clip just a rare, isolated incident of poor judgment inside one single team facility? Or is this cynical, calculated approach to game manipulation happening inside every single locker room across professional sports when the media cameras are turned off? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know what you think really happened behind those locked doors. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more unfiltered breakdowns. Imagine standing in the control room of one of the biggest independent media networks in the world, watching a video monitor as audio waveforms light up the screen in front of a live studio audience. The sports landscape was already sitting on a massive powder keg after months of intense rivalries and endless online debate. But nobody could have predicted that a single raw, unedited audio file recorded behind locked doors would threaten to tear down the entire public image of women's professional basketball. When that secret tape made its way onto the internet, passing through quiet message boards and private group chats before exploding across social media,